written any? No? It's just for fun, so you don't get graded or anything. So yeah, maybe draw a little square like this on your paper. There is a paper and pen. And once you have your square, it can be, yeah, like a 2" by 2, something like that. Draw a square. And then once you have your square like this, yeah, so once you have your square, so today's character is called Sho. It comes from our chant book, actually, which means right in English, or correct. And you write it like this. So first, from the top of your square, like above, you draw a horizontal line. And then you draw a vertical line. Then you draw a horizontal line. And then vertical line and horizontal. So, yeah. So you can help Gary. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we have that later, the eraser, don't worry. Or maybe I should give you extra. Yeah. Okay, you can use 10 years. Yeah, so you draw one horizontal line. So we do it one more time. So draw a horizontal line, then a vertical line, then a horizontal line, then a vertical line, then horizontal. This is easy because it alternates. Maybe not always like that. Maybe later we have to use the eraser for the markers. These are probably permanent. Okay, so much for the Chinese character. Oh. Yeah, so the balance kind of matters, but for the beginning, maybe it's okay, as long as you have the shape. Yeah, it needs some balance. Yeah. But it's not bad, so you say. And yeah, and actually it's made of 2 parts. The top part is number 1. This is number 1. That's how they write 1. And this part, it means, it's like the stop sign in Japan looks like this. It's kind of like stop. Like there's a person here holding, extending his hand saying stop. But actually Yuichi was saying maybe it's better to translate as to remain. Yeah, so like something that's right or truth, it remains, it doesn't change or fluctuate. The Chinese characters have a very profound meaning. So something that's right or truth, it always remains at 1. So there is no fluctuation. Part of our chant book is called Shoshinge. So next week, Yuichi will teach us the Shin, which means faith. Yeah, okay. So that's for the Chinese characters for this week. And then today's topic, we've been learning about the true nature of human existence. And it's important to know who we are as a human being. So if we don't know who we are, No matter what we do in life, where we go, we might not be necessarily satisfied or happy because something closest to ourselves we know nothing about. Recently, I heard a guru, they asked him, do you ever feel lonely when you're alone? You know what he responded? It was like, if I do, that's a pretty bad companion. He did that. Some people suffer from loneliness when they're alone, so maybe they're not quite comfortable with who they are or their mind. Buddhism helps us with that, to know who we are and also reach a level of happiness with it and peace. So that's why it's very important to know our true self or our image as a human being, who we are. And then we have a video about this. Buddha made a parable which is called The True Nature of Human Existence. And I don't know if you've heard of name Tolstoy, the famous Russian writer. So he praised this parable so much because he said that no story shows the true nature of life, human life, more accurately than this story. So although this is taught by the Buddha, many famous people also have praised it as well. So this is the difficult part because it's an extension of the monitor. We have English countries.
On the true nature of human existence. One day, in the process, went to listen to Shakti Buddha's sermon. This is what human beings are like. Shakti made a point in Hasinaji, who was listening to Buddhism for the first time, about this through a parable. Millions of years ago, a traveler light alone across a vast, grassy plain. It was a dreary autumn evening, and a chill wind blew. As he hurried along the path, all at once he noticed white objects scattered around and came to a stop, wondering what they could be. He picked one up and was startled to discover that it was a human bone. What were so many bones doing in such a place? Lost in thought over this, he moved not a step further. Soon from the darkness ahead, he heard something moving and a strange growling sound. He peered into the gloom and made out the distant figure of a fierce tiger, maddened by starvation, racing straight at him. Instantly the meaning of the bones became clear. Other travelers, passing this way like him, must have been eaten by the tiger. Instinctively, he sensed that he was in the same situation. Terrified, he ran back the way he had come, desperate to escape the tiger's jaws. But no human can outrun a tiger. Before long, he felt the tiger's terrible hot breath at his back. It seemed that he had taken a wrong turn, for the path ended suddenly in a sharp cliff. He was trapped. A single pine tree stood on the cliff. The traveler thought that even if he climbed the tree, he wouldn't be able to escape the tiger. All he could do was despair. Fortunately, right after that, he spotted a vine hanging from the bottom of the tree at the edge of the cliff. Needless to say, he grabbed hold of the vine and lowered himself as far as he could. The traveler had narrowly escaped with his life, and when he looked up, he saw the tiger on the cliff. Frustrated at seeing its prey get away, the tiger began to groan in disappointment. he murmured. It's a lucky thing this vine was here, or that would be the end of me. Now I can breathe easy. Then he glanced down, and he couldn't keep from gasping in shock. Lapping the base of the cliff were the angry billows of a bottomless sea. Nor was that all. In the waves were three dragons, one blue, one red, and one black, waiting with their bright red mouths wide open for him to fall. In horror, he clung tighter to the vine and shuddered. However, human emotions are fleeting. After a while, the traveller began to feel hungry and looked around for something to eat. That's when he made his most horrifying discovery of all. Two mice, one white and one black, were searching the roots of the vine, gnawing at it in turns. The traveller's face turned pale, his teeth chattered, and he shook uncontrollably. He shook the vine vigorously to scare the mice away, but to no avail. They just kept on chewing at the same pace. Soon, the traveller noticed something drifting down from above. Honeybees had made a hive at the base of the vine, and now 5 drops of sweet honey fell into his mouth. The traveller's heart was captivated by the luscious honey the moment it graced his tongue, and he forgot the terror of his plight. When Shakyamuni Buddha's sermon reached this point, the Prasenajit stood up and shouted, "World Honored One, please stop. Don't continue that story anymore, please." How could this traveller be so foolish? How could he ever forget how terrible it is for him to be in such danger with only the distraction of 5 honey drops? When I think about what will happen to him from now, I'm too frightened to hear any more of this story. Great King, Shakyamuni Buddha replied, do you think this traveller a fool? This traveller, in fact, refers to you. What? How could this traveller refer to me? This foolish traveller represents not only you, but the whole human race. At these words of Shakyamuni Buddha, the entire audience stood up in shock. This is the parable in which Shakyamuni Buddha illustrated the true image of us human beings. The traveller. The autumn evening. The white bones. The tiger. The pine tree. The vine. The white mouse and the black mouse. The bottomless sea. The 3 dragons. And the 5 drops of honey. Each of these symbols represents our image. Let us thoroughly learn the purpose of listening to Buddhism through this parable that Shakyamuni Buddha taught.
If we see beyond it, everything is dominated by oneself, is it not? I want to be awakened. I want to be enlightened. I want to have some spiritual revelation, which is really no different than I want an ice cream cone. I want to be loved. I want to be agreed with.
Yeah, so we've been talking about the traveler, which represents like all human beings, because we're always moving, not only in place, like we think on purpose earlier, but also we are moving through time as well. Like from yesterday to today, from last year to this year, always in motion. So that's why it's so important for any person to know where they're going in life. You know, where is our destination? Where are we headed? And for what purpose are we making so much effort? And so by listening to the teachings of Buddha, we come to understand the answer to these questions. So we explained the traveler and the autumn evening in the past. Today, the focus is on the tiger of impermanence. So we go over the meaning of the tiger in this story. And yes, so tiger, it is, if you listen closely, it said that it's a ravenous tiger, very hungry, ferocious, and it's hot on the heels of each one of us. Okay. It seems to be here, but it's not moving to the third slide. Yeah, are you familiar with this expression? To be hot on the heels of each one of us. Yeah. 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 Yeah, exactly. Breathing, the tiger's breathing, you can feel it on the back. So, or it basically it means to pursue. Yeah. Okay. To pursue. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this ravenous tiger is hot on the heels of each one of us. So that means that the tiger, there is a tiger behind each one of us. Yeah. You might turn and we don't see it, but yeah. And the tiger represents impermanence. So it's actually only in Buddhism can we find the doctrine on the solution to the problem of death, which is the answer to why we live. So this tiger represents the problem of death, the fact that we have to one day leave this world. The white bones represent other people's death. The tiger represents each one of us reaching the final station of life. And other religions, they only teach on how to live, and they say that, you know, when people die, if they believe in a deity, they can go to heaven after death. And that's because many people feel that their minds become dark or they just get depressed when they think about death. So they don't want to face death so much. But Buddhism actually encourages us to face our mortality because it is a certain future for all of us. Yeah. So if we want to experience happiness that's lasting and unchanging, we have to face the truth that never changes, which is Since human beings have been in existence, when they're born, they die. Whoever comes to life, they have to die. This is unchanging truth. Even 10,000 years ago, today, 10,000 years in the future. No matter how long they extend human life, still we have to go. We cannot live like up to 1,000 years, not even maybe 150. So, yeah, and then some people find it difficult, and so Buddhism always encourages us. And incidentally, today is the 21st of July, so we have a phrase for each day of the month. Today is, let's not avert our eyes from suffering, rather let's examine it closely. So this suffering is, if we think about death, we kind of feel a little pain. We don't want to, think about it much. It brings us down. So most people try to avert their eyes, just not to look at it, right? And try to distract themselves from it by always thinking about anything that has nothing to do with the B word. So going to parties or, school, working. Some people become workaholics, they just go overboard. They can do maybe enough for 40 hours of work a week, but they do more because they don't want to be left alone and looking at the clock, keep moving, knowing that they're getting closer and closer to the final station of life. But Buddhism encourages us to face our sufferings or our loneliness or things that bother us, to face it. Then for sure we can find a solution. So that's the beauty of Buddhism. And on the next day, 22nd day, it says that a person who knows fear, yet fears it not, is actually a person of true courage. So that's the definition of true courage in Buddhism. We know fear. For example, as a person, even though we are Buddhists, we might have that fear towards death, but we try to face it and listen to the teachings because Buddhism encourages us to remember the fact that we have to die one day. So we need that courage or the guts to face it. And that person is considered as a person of true courage because you are trying to solve something that is basically most difficult. And most people don't want to deal with it. Yeah. Yeah, we face it, but just face it alone, you have to gather your courage. It's not easy. Yeah, like in Japanese they have the word for death is actually pronounced as shi for the word death, and then also how they write number 4 is also, it happens to be pronounced as shi. So many Japanese, they associate these two with each other. So every time they hear the number 4, they are reminded of death. So most people don't like number 4. So if you ever go to Japan, you shouldn't give 4 apples to someone. It's superstition, but it shows how much we dislike to think about death. Especially hospitals, they don't have 4th floor in the elevator. So it's 1st floor, 2nd floor, 3rd, and then 5th. Yeah. So we need that courage to face it, our fears. And yeah. So, and then the most courageous act is to tackle the most difficult task. So, if you want to start your own business, of course you need a lot of courage because it's risky. You might go bankrupt. So, only people who want to take that risk, they start their own business, they become entrepreneurs. Or, these days, even to marry, I think you need courage to have kids and build a house. Everything requires a lot of courage. But to tackle the most difficult task of all, which is, the fact that we have to die, but nobody really likes to die. Nobody wants to die. It's a kind of big paradox within each person. So to tackle that is the most difficult task. But then you become the most courageous person. And so Buddhism teaches us how to solve the problem of death. It doesn't mean by solving that we're not going to die, but Buddhism has the power to remove the darkness that we feel when we face our death. So there is a supreme Buddha named Amida who has made a promise to eliminate this darkness of mind in a split second of ichinen. Ichinen just means a split second. It takes no time like this. And in Japanese, they refer to it as Heise Gojo, which means you can fulfill life's greatest task while still alive in this life. So we don't have to die to find out what happens to us when we die. While we are living right now, we can gain certainty of our afterlife, and then every day we live becomes filled with life and joy and happiness. So yeah, as we listen to Buddhism, we learn more about Amida Buddha. But for today, I just want you to know that there is a solution. That's why Buddha encourages us to remember our own mortality. Yeah, so Heise Gojo is the Japanese expression actually made by Master Shinran, who is the founder of Pure Land Shin Buddhism. Basically means finding happiness now. Instead of always waiting for happiness to visit us, happiness is possible now. And how is it possible to experience happiness that doesn't change, that will always be with us? It's by listening to the teachings of Buddha, by going forward on this horizontal path, which is the path of listening to the teachings, listening to the Dharma. That's why Buddha established Sangha, which is like a Buddhist community, where we help each other go forward. Because it's very difficult to go forward all alone. You need a determination of skill. But in a Sangha or community, people helping each other, we all go forward towards experiencing this happiness that never abandons us, that never betrays us. And Buddhism teaches this happiness is actually why we were born as a human, why we live, and why we have to keep on living no matter how painful life becomes. That means there is a purpose to life. There is a point of accomplishment here, a goal, where you can find what you have always been looking for all throughout life. Okay, so then I have another PowerPoint here. This one is actually made by Frank. Oops. So now we want to switch to this PowerPoint. No, there are many windows. I'm not so familiar. Yeah, so here's what's happening now. I need more practice because, yeah, okay, I will practice. So impermanence, it has direct relation to purpose of life, finding purpose of life. Okay. So life is a journey. So that means we cannot stay where we are forever. So once we are born, then we are on a journey called life. But this journey takes us to the final station of life. And this is a future we cannot avoid. So no matter how hard we try to avoid it, we cannot. It's 100% certain. And no one leaves their home in the morning thinking that this will be the last time they're leaving their home. But every time we hear the news, we hear about so many people who leave very healthy in the morning, but then they don't return home in the evening. So For us, it feels like a, like a tale, like it's not real. But actually, from the eyes of the Buddha, there is nothing more real than this. Okay. And this is from You Were Born for a Reason, the book we have on page 38. So death comes when by rights it has no business coming. It goes coolly where by rights it has no business going, like a desperado striding with dirty boots into a freshly cleaned parlor. Death's behavior is outrageous. You may ask it to wait a while, but in vain. Death is the monster beyond human power to budge or to hold in check. Like this from current slide. So we have this picture is Shinran, and then the other one is Master Renyo. So he lived in Japan 500 years ago, and he said this. Hence, we may have radiant faces in the morning, but in the evening, be no more than white bones. So especially 500 years ago, the lifespan was so, short. I think it was like 45 or 50 average lifespan. And in one family, like several people died right after one after another. So the person who was grieving, he went to Master Renyo and explained how much suffering he was going through. And Master Renyo composed, this is just part of a larger letter, which is very famous, and it's always read in the funerals and in Japan. Yeah, and like we can never imagine that person was so healthy just the other day, but now they're gone. Yeah, it's always a shock. And this Roman philosopher Seneca also said similar thing, that whatever can happen at any time can happen today. So even though it feels to us like a fairy tale, we have a very strong sense of security that I'm going to be okay. But Buddha is trying to make us aware that, one day it will become our turn. And in Europe, they have these public clocks. Yeah, Ultima Forsan. Have you heard of this? No? Yeah. What is it? Yeah, especially in the past. Public clocks in Europe in the Middle Ages. They were decorated with the Latin words Ultima Forsan, which means perhaps this could be your last hour. So it's always, they had this reminder that don't take your life for granted. Life is not, for eternity. It's very limited. Back then, right? Yeah. So you imagine people might understand it better. And so we don't know when our last hour will be, but for sure, one day, 1 hour will become our last one. And this is a picture of like a clock that says Ultima Forsan. Yeah. They add some element of art. And these are the words of a song from the Middle Ages. Life is short and shortly it will end. Death comes quicker than you think. It takes everything away, but takes pity on no one. We hasten towards death. But the question is, are we prepared? What does it mean to be prepared for death? And to know this is to know Buddhism. I was watching the news after the terrorist attack in Nice, France the other day, and there was a woman, I think she must have lost like a family. She was so devastated. I just heard her saying that I just want to go home and close, like lock my doors, and I don't want to go out. And I was imagining, the horror she went through and all that. So it's very understandable, how she felt in that moment. Yeah, so it always kind of reminds us how cruel death can be. But most people think there is nothing that can be done, so they kind of give up preparing for death. But they only prepare for old age, which is not a certain reality. Some people, if they die young, they never experience old age. But no one prepares for death, which is certain to happen. It's kind of strange. Yeah, because there is no one who is not going to die. And yet, people don't prepare for that. And yeah, but everybody has a lot of worries, and they prepare a lot for their old age, like pension, retirement, 401k. And so the sole purpose of listening to Buddhism is to clarify what happens in our afterlife and overcome the problem of death. So that becomes our purpose in life. So every journey has a destination. And if we don't know what awaits us when we die, then our destination becomes dark. So if our future is dark, dark meaning we don't know. There's no light to see. If it's dark, the future, then our present mind also becomes dark. That means we cannot enjoy life from the bottom of our heart. And that's why no matter how much people experience different blessings in life, they still don't feel happy because they are running in the dark. So whatever they might happen to pick up along the way, it provides them no heartfelt cheer. I don't know if you feel this way when you look at people around you. They have so many blessings. They have wealth, they have power, they have nice houses. But sometimes you have conversations and you don't feel that joy. Some people maybe you feel it, but some people you don't feel that joy of being alive. Yeah, so Buddhism says because the future is dark, then we feel dark at the present. And yet we are not so concerned. It's not that we are very serious. We are not concerned. That's the issue. So our greatest issue is this darkness towards our future, but we're not concerned about it at all. And that's why it becomes all the more crucial. If we had some, concern, maybe we would be in a better position. But the fact that it's a certain reality and we don't have concern makes it all the more problematic. Yeah. So it is something that affects us actually now. And even though we always rely on the future, one day it may not happen. But some people say, I'm not afraid of death. Many people say that to us. Oh, I'm not afraid of death. When it happens, it happens. Like, especially if they're in the medical, establishments like doctors, nurses, they're always dealing with death. So they say that's okay. So many doctors feel that way. But actually, there was this physician, when his own death happened, before it happened, he said that all this time, it was only other people who died, or so I had assumed. Now, the thought of my own death is more than I can bear. So you can see that how we imagine other people's death, and when it's actually our own time to go, it will be different. It's not the same. So when we think about other people's death, it's like you go see a tiger in a zoo, but when it's our own death, it's like facing a tiger in the mountain. Yes, a tiger in a cage is the death we have in our imagination. Tiger in the mountain is actually the reality of death itself. Here's a nice picture. Yeah, I don't know if you've been to this hotel in Las Vegas. Yeah, so they have the zoo and lions in a cage. So, people are having fun taking pictures. I don't know if you can take a selfie. And you can make fun of the lions or tigers because you feel totally protected. There is a big, make faces, you can giggle them through glasses. You feel totally safe, so you don't mind them. That's like looking at death, but knowing death only through other people's death. And there is this person, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who was an expert on death and dying. Have you heard of her name? No, yeah, she passed away a few years ago. But yeah, so she studied basically thousands of patients on their deathbed in the hospitals, and she's credited for the hospice movement too. And so she's extremely famous. So now we read one handout and then we can have a break. Okay, so an expert's optimistic view of death and dying changes upon approaching her own final station in life. So she was extremely optimistic about death, and her purpose was to let people die with a smile, and which is very noble, to help people die with as little pain as possible. And she would joke about death and dying, but actually when it's time for her to go, she totally changed. Okay, so by far, okay, how about we read like one paragraph or so each? We can start with Mr. Noble. Is it difficult?
As part of the optimistic view of death and dying changes upon approaching her own final station in life. By far, the best known of hospice pioneers is Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, the Swiss-born psychologist, whose international bestseller on death and dying was published in 1969. In the 1970s and 80s, Kubler-Ross traveled the world in lecturing on what he called the West death denying culture, and her theory about the 5 stages of grief a dying person typically go through. On death and dying is still read in some 30 languages, but Kubler-Ross, now in her late 70s, has been out of the public eye for years.
On an outing with visitors, Kubler-Ross spends an afternoon at a zoo, not far from her home in Scottsdale, Arizona. She's small and hunched, partially paralyzed after a series of strokes in the 1990s. Kubler-Ross travels by wheelchair. She wears a baseball cap over her gray hair. "Hello, sweetie," Kubler-Ross says to a big blue macaw that squawks in her direction from inside its cage. "Yes, you're pretty. I take you home anytime." Kubler-Ross is not the kind of cultural icon that gets recognized in public. When a young zoo worker, Peter Carter, offers her a ride in a golf cart, he asks her name. "Kubler-Ross," she says.
The name means nothing to Carter, but when he's told that his passenger helped pioneer the hospice movement, Carter gets wide-eyed. "I can't tell you what a wonderful thing that did," he says. "My grandmother's." And the hospice workers came and they just independence and support and, dignity. I mean, there's nowhere else where they can get that consciously. I'm going to get all emotional now. Kubler-Ross made a mark on Western culture that will clearly outlive her.
In the recent movie, The Life of David Gale, Laura Linney's character breaks the news of her terminal illness to a friend played by Kevin Spacey. You know those stages of Kubler-Ross, Linney asks, the one the dying go through? Spacey replies gamely, and the two complete the list. Anger, denial, bargaining, depression, acceptance. After conceding that she currently in the denial phase, Linney laments sarcastically. Yeah, I'm not up to the job of dying person, marveling at blades of grass, lecturing strangers to relish every moment.
Kubler-Ross ideas lend themselves to such lampooning. Some believe that she and the hospice movement were offering a one-size-fits-all recipe: incense and death with a smile. But it's never been that simple. Passing her days now in a Scottsdale group home, Kubler-Ross is herself anything but serene. She cusses and smokes, and though she can be warm and witty, she often crotchety. I was not lucky enough to die, she says. Waiting to die is a boring process. Then I was angry at God. As well, I gave him hell too. I said, "You are not any better than Hitler himself." And he laughed his head off. When Kubler-Ross talks to God, it seems God talks back. But whatever the popular perception, Kubler-Ross never said there was one right way to die.
The question is really, what does it mean to die with dignity? She said in a radio interview back in 1975. To die with dignity to me means to die within your character. That means there are people who have used denial all their life long. They will most likely die in a stage of denial. There are people who have been fighters and rebels all their long life, and by glory they want to die that way. And to those patients, we have to help them to say it's okay.
Yeah, good job. Very good. So now let us have some break time. Buddhist greeting, etc. So yeah, we have green tea. You can have it if you like. Yeah. If you don't need it, just leave it. Yeah, or collect it. 5 stages of grief. You're in school, right? Yeah. Right. Yeah. So what are the 5 stages? First is anger, right? Then it's denial. Then you start bargaining, depression, and then finally acceptance. So as we read, even Kubler-Ross, who was always observing other people's death, when it comes her own turn, she was very bitter, crotchety, and very short-tempered. So there's also this Latin phrase, memento mori. Have you ever heard of it? From the Middle Ages. So memento is like memorabilia, means remember. And mori means mortal. So remember that you are mortal. If we truly felt that we had to die, we would never have to be reminded of this. So that's why, the wise of the past always came up with these expressions, memento mori. Because we think we will never die. We have this mind actually, believe it or not. So if you try to walk on your shadow, it keeps walking away from you. That's symbolic of when people ask you, do you think you're going to die tomorrow? And if we ask you again the day after, you think you're going to die tomorrow, you probably answer with the same response, no. So it's like as if you try to step on your shadow. No matter how hard you chase your shadow, it runs away from you. So we feel like we're going to live for eternity. We have this mind, even though it sounds foolish. Yeah, we have a mind that thinks it will never die. So that means human mind is unprepared for death. So we learned about this, that death always comes suddenly. No matter when it appears, the one visited by death looks on its arrival as a sudden intrusion, because the mind filled with a sense of security is totally unprepared for death. So Buddhism teaches that we all have 2 minds. So the upper mind is the consciousness, which is we all know we have to die. So a 10-year-old might know about dying, but then a 90-year-old person still doesn't believe he's gonna die. And so about the existence of these 2 very important minds. So they call it the upper mind, which is the conscious mind that we already are aware of, and the lower mind, which is our true mind. And this is taught only in Buddhism. Yeah, upper and lower. And when we listen to Buddhism, we want our true self or the true mind to hear the teachings. That's the objective. Yeah, the purpose of listening to Buddhism is to make our true self listen. So it's not just listening to acquire knowledge with the upper, consciousness, with our cognition. We're not here just for knowledge. Knowledge is important too, but our purpose is to have our true self or the spirit, the soul, listen. That's how we can attain absolute happiness and fulfill the purpose of life. Yeah, so we listen to Buddhism through our ears, in the face here. But then our purpose is to have the lower mind, our true self, to truly hear the reality, the truth of life and death. So some people don't want to face impermanence, but you can think of it as a decayed tooth. If you have a decayed tooth, someone here might have one. If you have a decayed tooth, like if you don't have the dental insurance, so there is so much you can endure it. You can buy ACT, the mouthwash, the stop cavity. They have all these things that they claim you can prevent the cavity. But, it might cause you only occasional twinge in its early stages, but if you leave it untreated, it will cause you have many sleepless nights from the pain. I don't know if you ever had a horrible toothache. So it's something that needs treatment. It has to be taken care of. So impermanence too, when we are young and healthy and everything going well, maybe we can go through life without facing impermanence. But the time will come, because Buddha says everything in this world is changing all the time, fluctuating, always. Like Gerard said at the beginning, sometimes it's a big change. Like, when someone loses their life, that's the biggest change. Sometimes it's a very small change, like this table you see here is not the same table as yesterday or last week you were here. It looks the same, right? But physicists say it's not the same. There is change at the molecular. It moves a little bit. Yeah, and you can take it far. Some say it's not even there. Yeah, yeah, it moves. Yeah, everything is in motion, change. Nothing remains fixed. So birth is the start of a life journey, and we need to know where we are going if we want to be happy. So confronting death doesn't mean sliding vainly into depression, but actually it is the first step towards making the moments of our life outshine the sun. So yeah, if you really want to experience happiness that will always be with you, no matter what happens, we get sick or old, eventually when we die, happiness that will not move away or fade away or even change. We need to face something that is as certain as our own mortality. Buddha teaches so. So some people say people have all different purposes in life, but that's because these people ignore the universal problem of death. So if you think about mortality, it's common to all people. So Buddhism says the purpose of life is universal for all people, is to overcome this problem of death and find lasting happiness. And if you look death squarely in the face, you will know the root cause of suffering. And if you know the suffering from its root, it can be severed and eliminated. Okay, so it's not for the end, but... Yeah, so now I want to have a little discussion among yourselves. So what do you think when we live life, it is said living itself is like avoiding death. For example, when we get sick, we run to the doctors. Why? Because we don't like to die, or when, for example, people talk about health food these days so much, right? Eat quinoa, all these things, carrot juice. Oh, you put fiber, a lot of fiber. So even if you have a muffin, you don't feel bad because it's full of fiber. It's very good, of course. Our health is very important because we want to listen to Buddhism. But let's have some discussion about how every day, by living, we are actually trying to push death away by any kind of activities we have. So we have one group here, the three of you and three of you. What do you think?
Special. Only special and special.
But it's not showing yet. You see, nothing happens here. See, this is clear.
What do you want to see? Check.
People get distracted by stuff all the time, so it doesn't occur to them that that's nothing. So until it's actually coming. That's when they're like, oh, well.
Yeah, they say that only when people are on their deathbed, that's really the only time when they finally are like, that's really all they think about. Yeah.
Nothing else is real, even if they have millions in the bank account. It's not real anymore.
Right.
Then you cannot take it with you.
Yeah, sure.
The only thing real becomes that moment and what comes from.
Yeah. Yeah, because then you have the for sure problem is right in front of us at that point that we're going to die. It's directly in front of us. We're so far away, or we think we're far away. Anyways, we don't really know, but we assume that we're far away from death. But as we get closer, maybe when we get sick, we get a little bit closer to it, to the to knowledge of impermanence, and then we get healthy again, and then we kind of get farther away, and then we forget about it again. Yeah, I think, sometimes, or like, maybe you don't have to get sick, but maybe if just something bad happens in life, and then it kind of reminds you.
Yeah, there's always many reminders.
Yeah,
Everywhere.
sometimes not, though.
Sometimes, yeah.
I don't know.
I actually know someone who's trying to move to Thailand to avoid Donald Trump. I was like, that's crazy because he's like leaving his whole family, like just for that. I was like, oh my god, I can't do that.
Yeah. America is like what do they call it? Kind of the mother nation. So no matter what, it'll affect wherever you are, right?
He's like leaving everything behind. He doesn't even know anybody in Thailand.
Yeah, it's a bit extreme.
Because he thinks they're racist. That he only likes rich white people, men.
Yeah,
so he has a long discrimination.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand why your friend is doing that. Maybe they didn't think about it enough.
Yeah. You can't just run away from that. Not like that.
Some people think running away is can solve it, or at least solve it for a temporary.
Relief.
Yeah.
So they don't have to deal with it. But then it mounts up to do so.
He's not.
Yeah. Yeah, there's always something. But yeah, I think people avoid the question of impermanence in the same way. Your friend is like, Donald Trump, like it'll always be there. Trump will always be. Or maybe when Trump passes, his son, right? Or
they'll go back if they think it's okay. But then it's like, why did you have to leave for so short just to come back again?
There will be another Trump at some point, maybe someone else who's just like Trump, and then friends gonna want to run away again.
Yeah.
Or someone will want to run away.
Always running away. Yeah, we have a friend in Japan. She has to have everything organic. Do you know such people? Yeah, so they really have.
Sometimes I want to.
Yeah, I mean, me too. Yeah, we have aversion to pesticides. If they find out pesticide is the cause of cancer, we want to avoid it. We don't want to get sick.
When I go to Walmart, I buy the non-GMO chicken.
We try, right? Organic, range-free, free-range chickens, eggs. People are going to keep it, but it's just that we don't know about it, and we're still studying it, we don't know. Yeah. So that's why I think we can understand but also make people. It's always both. Yeah. We are kind of moving in the dark. We don't know the consequences, right? Oh, to see. They created beef artificially. I heard that. It's very expensive now, so it's not available.
It's not like a wheat-based thing.
No, it's not from a cow. It's not from a cow. Artificial. And you don't want to know where it came from. Yeah, science is very advanced. experiment with everything. Great. Yeah, so we are always running away from the tiger in a sense, right? Always. But to become aware of it, then we realize that it's a battle that we cannot really win. One day the tiger will grab hold of us. So happy are those people who try to face it. And by listening to Buddhism, the Dharma, you will find the solution. Mm. Yeah, but sometimes it does happen too. Like terrorism, for example. Like you never imagined shootings would happen in Los Angeles. Not Los Angeles, San Bernardino. It happened, right? That's as close as it got. Yeah, sometimes people worry, but just worrying for the sake of it is useless. I think that's what you're saying. Yeah, just worrying becomes anxiety disorder. That's not good. But to face it, so Buddhism uses, you have to face it. That means don't forget that you are mortal. Because if you remember that, then you will value, because we always make a choice. Do I go listen to Buddhism today? We have a scale in our mind, calculator. We always compute. Do I go listen to the Dharma or do I go here? Always. And the more we understand the truth, the more wisely we can make choices. So like for you to come here, to be in touch with the Dharma, that's the first step that we take to get to a place where we find real happiness. Yeah. If we never had to die, I think it's okay to pursue our endless desires, one after another. And I think that's the basis of capitalism. One after another. Like, what do you want? Now they have Pokemon Go. get children outside so they get actually exercise. So that's the good part of it. But, they always come up with new cartoons or new games and the new iPhone. They really take advantage of our endless desires. Yeah. But the problem is one day we cannot fulfill our desires. So it's not the best way to only focus on our desires because it's endless, but our time is limited. Yeah, but if we listen to Buddhism, then for sure the time will come when you will experience the real happiness. Yeah. And you will fulfill your purpose of life. So it was great to have you all with us today. That's all we had. And next week, you two will talk about the pine tree. There was a pine tree in the story. And so now But explaining is like one of the practices we have. Here we learn the teaching. Practices that comes in.
Literal speaking.